Well, good morning and welcome to everyone. Uh, we're going to talk about one word today. And the first, I'm going to ask you the question, why would so many of you have so little faith? And I'm speaking to each one of you directly today. Let's examine that question. In this world, we have 704 languages, and we have something called Instant Translator that allows us to speak from one language to another language. It doesn't matter what your native language is, almost instantaneously, so that we can communicate with everyone in the world. This day was prophesied in a book that I know is true, and that book is the Bible, and it was written over 2,000 years ago. Today, there's 97% of 7.88 billion people on this planet that have direct access to the internet. And that's a world platform. And that was also prophesied in the Bible over 2,000 years ago. Why can't you understand that everything that is now happening was known by someone else before it happened? And that someone else is God. That's our term for it. So I'm going to talk about one word, internet. Why is it hard for you to understand that God first gave us language so that we could speak and communicate and write? I am using words today. In science and math, the lowest common denominator is something that we use to solve problems. It's very simple. In communication of the Bible, we need to learn how to get to the lowest common denominator of the Bible's written word. And the reason is, lowest common denominator means the most simple way that using science, we can solve a problem. I am a messenger who's going to tell you about one word today. If you can learn that one word today and learn what God has made happen, you're going to have learned something. 50 years ago, there is not one person who's alive today on this planet who would have predicted that we would all be using this one word, internet. Because the internet didn't exist yet. But God knew it. Internet. Let's examine and discover what that one word means, and the fact that that word still meant it hundreds and thousands of years ago. Not hundreds of thousands, but several thousand years ago, before the internet was built. So the prefix of the word internet is inter. And inter came from its Latin origin, which means among or between. Now that's really interesting because among and between are almost opposites, but they both describe inter. So it's either among you, meaning with you or inside of you, or it's between you, meaning separating you. Do you remember me speaking of planet Earth that is traveling through space at a very high speed? Now, the Earth isn't just traveling around the sun. Our entire solar system is traveling through the universe at a very high speed. And you would ask, Professor, tell us, how fast is that? Well, I'm an American, so I'm going to use American, and then I'm also going to use the science version of this. But in America, we use miles per hour. And in miles per hour, it's 66,616 miles per hour. Most of our listeners use the metric system, and in the metric system, which is also what's used in science. Science guys use the metric system. So this is cool. So we do the quick conversion. And in metric system, it's 107,208 kilometers per hour. Or if I were to reduce that down to kilometers per second, it'd be 29.78 kilometers per second. So back to our one word. The other half of the one word we're speaking of today, and remember, we're speaking of the word internet. So the other half of that word is net. And if you were falling from the sky without a parachute, what would you want to catch you to stop you from falling to your death? Of course, the word is net. It's the only way to survive the fall. It's also the only best way to catch something. Didn't the men of ancient times use a net to catch fish as the best way of catching fish? Is it spoken of in the Bible about men catching fish? And history will be written about things that happen today. And if we were to travel ahead in time, 1,000 years, it will be said of now, God allowed man to discover the internet and allowed for a way to communicate with all men using the internet, only at a time in history that is right now. How strong is your faith? And I will ask you once again, do you really have internet? Only at a time in history that is right now. Do you have internet? And if you do have the internet I am speaking of, you have the faith of a child and you have internet. Have a great day.